All right, we are live and welcome to AP Lang's Synthesis Overview with me, Brandon Wu. This stream will last about 30 to 35 minutes or so. It should be a pretty short stream, might even go quicker. It just depends on the level of feedback I get from y'all. So yeah, already see that we have a few people here joining us. Welcome. We'll wait about 1 or 2 minutes or so before we start going on or start continuing through the stream. So excited to talk about synthesis with y'all. And while you're waiting, make sure you fill out the poll. For those of you that are watching the replay, you'll see that I have asked y'all how many synthesis essays you've written in class. So this is probably a stream more dedicated to people that have only done 1 or 2 synthesis essays because, well, for those of you who have done more than 3, wow, congratulations. You are pretty decently prepared for the AP exam, and we'll be doing a lot of synthesis prep over the next few weeks. That will hopefully reinforce your strengths going into the AP exam in May. All right, so I guess we'll move into talking about Fiveable. So I don't know if y'all read the announcement or the email that Amanda sent out, our founder and CEO, but Fiveable is now completely free, which means at least for the time being until maybe late April, all of our streams, all of our replays, all of our content, our community forums, everything is completely free, which means, we're trying to make AP education much more accessible, and that really, follows through with our vision that everything should be free. So, if you're a little lacking on multiple choice, whether that's the rhetorical analysis kind of questions or composition multiple choice, you can watch the 2 streams from last week and the week before that was hosted by me and learn more about those things and watch the replays completely for free. Yeah. So as you can see from this page, we have a lot of streams coming up. I will actually be at the stream in the next hour and 30 minutes, current events and weekly updates. I highly recommend you show up because it'll help you out on the argument and synthesis essay as well, in addition to stuff like AP statistics. I know a lot of juniors are in AP US history or in biology and physics, so those streams are on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So for us, we have a lot of streams coming up. I know this bar is here and I'm trying to get rid of it, but I don't know what's going on with that. So we'll see if that fixes itself. Next week, 1 week from today, we'll have the introduction paragraph stream and the body paragraph stream the week following. Those 2 streams will be hosted by me. And then on March 16th, you'll have conclusion paragraphs with Kevin Steinhauser. And on the 23rd, you'll have rhetorical analysis, review, and practice with Stephanie Kirk. Those are 2 fantastic AP Lang teachers. Yeah, my mouse is moved away from it. It's just not loaded all the way, apparently, which is why it's still there. But I'm gonna see what I can do about this in just a second. Also, make sure you check out Fiveable social media. We post there occasionally about upcoming streams and announcements, so I recommend you show up. Let me try this real quick because it's bothering me now. In the meantime, I guess I'll let y'all know what we're going to be covering today. We're going to start off with talking about what synthesis is. We'll move into the official AP Lang course and exam description of the synthesis essay. And then we'll talk more about some samples, what to do, what not to do, some great tips and stuff. And then, yeah, we should be able to wrap it up by 6:35 Central, 7:35 Eastern, 4:35 Pacific. And for those of you that are in Pacific time, y'all are so lucky that you get all of Fiveable streams pretty early in the night. Yeah, something that us Central Time people don't have the fortune of getting. Anyways, I'm gonna see if it reloaded properly, and then we'll continue on with the stream. Also, I wanna make this as interactive as possible. So when I ask a question for y'all to answer, please try and be interactive. Also, it cleared, thank goodness, because otherwise it makes it more awkward for me and for you because I'm just sitting here in silence waiting for y'all to talk. So I would really appreciate some feedback. Also, ta-da, it went away. Alrighty, so as I said earlier, we'll have what is synthesis, this course and exam description, some terms and techniques, samples, and do's and don'ts. So what is synthesis, broadly speaking? It's taking a position while incorporating given sources to support that position or support that argument. I would say that it's closest to a history DBQ, but I would be very careful because what you do on the DBQ is what's different than what you do on the synthesis essay, because you're not doing the like document analysis like hip or happy or whatever. You're not saying source A, source B, source C. You're not using all but one source, things like that. That's what differentiates the English language synthesis essay with the DBQ. I would say that it's an argument essay with sources provided to you and also some of your own analysis and some of your own like evidence that you came up with. So what does the AP English language course and exam description say? It says that synthesis is like the analysis of multiple sources in concert with one another, which broadens the context of that topic, provided that these sources are different and often opposing stakeholders in a given situation. So I think the important word here is stakeholders. What that means is that people who hold different positions and have are impacted by that topic. And so you'll often see on a synthesis essay that when you're given 6 to 7 sources, which by the way, I don't know if y'all played the trivia earlier that Fiveable has been doing. I hope y'all did turn out because it was a lovely set of questions that I wrote, but I'll be covering some of that too. Essentially, you'll be graded on a 6-point rubric for the synthesis essay. 141 is how most AP Lang teachers refer to it as, or AP English teachers in general. Your first point is for thesis, your 4 points are for evidence and commentary, and your last point is for sophistication. Also, feel free to stop me at any time. This is not a lecture, or I mean it is, but it's not meant to be just me droning on for 30 to 35 minutes. I don't want this to be like a boring classroom presentation. I want y'all to ask me questions, interrupt me, because that's what makes this fun. Anyways, you might be wondering right now, how do you get all 6 points on the synthesis essay? It's a great question. So College Board has outlined very specifically the ways that you can earn 141. So for the thesis point, you have to respond to the prompt. You can't restate it. You can't play both sides. And you can also, if you want, develop a line of reasoning, which just means explaining some of the sub-arguments within your broad argument as a whole, or providing maybe some evidence or some commentary in the thesis. Then for evidence and commentary, you have to provide evidence from 3 sources or more. So out of your 6 sources or 7 sources, you have to use at least 3 of them. And you have to talk about them in a way that's relevant to your thesis, and also include commentary or analysis or your own words that links that evidence to the thesis, and also explaining that relationship. For sophistication, you have to do one of these 5 things. The first is creating a thesis that requires nuanced consideration of text evidence. The other is situating your thesis in a broader context, including a concession, rebuttal, refutation, making effective rhetorical choices that strengthen the persuasiveness of your argument, or using vivid, persuasive, or convincing prose style. I think, by the way, the easiest ones to get is the situating your thesis in a broader context, or including a concession, rebuttal, or refutation. Honestly, I think this one right here, the third one, oops. This one right here is the easiest, including a concession and or rebuttal and or refutation. It's pretty easy. And we'll explain it in the later few streams. Here are some important terms and techniques that may be covered in upcoming streams, but I want to talk about right now. Embedded quotes are so important for the synthesis essay, because remember, in order to earn any credit on synthesis, you have to be citing sources. And if you're citing sources, you have to attribute them and use quotes or paraphrase. So embedded quotes are when essentially you take part of the article, you quote it, and you include it in your essay, and then include analysis before and after it. So for instance, a set-off quotation is when you quote from a sentence with a comma. So something like, as Jane said, comma, and then you put your quote from your text there. A build-in quotation is when the quote is included within the sentence. So Jane Smith noted in 2016 that, quote, blah, 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 which, end quote, which is problematic because, so a build-in is when you have stuff before and after. Quotes introduced with a colon are a complete sentence before a colon and then like a quote, pretty self-explanatory. Signal phrases are introducing the article or the author or the background of the quote. So you should always be using signal phrases because it helps your readers understand where the quote is coming from, and also provides pretty good credibility. Like, for instance, instead of saying source A says in 2015, you could say, as John Smith knows from notes from Newsweek magazine. Speaking of the word notes, that is what we call is when you use a verb that describes another author's statements. Basically, alternatives to says. It's not Bob says, it's Bob asserts, Bob argues, Bob quantifies, Bob qualifies. Words like that, those are signal words. And so these aren't tested on the AP Lang exam. They're just good things to use and to know when you're writing your synthesis essay, because it makes your essay pop more and it really makes it seem a little bit more credible. And I don't know if you joined me last week or the week before for multiple choice, but there will not be a lot of question and answering. So I don't know if that makes you more or less comfortable, but I hope that's helpful, I guess. So we're going to start off with some samples. If the words are blurry on your screen or you can't really see it, you can go to this link that I'm pasting on page 2, and you can find the sample. So what I want y'all to do is for the next 3 minutes or so, I'm going to have you read the sample, and then yeah, I'll give you 2 minutes to read the sample, and then we're going to move on to the second part of the sample and give you another minute and a half or so. So 3 minutes and 30 seconds to read this whole thing. And we'll start that now. All right, for those of you who are reading from the PowerPoint slide here, I'll move on to the last part, which is here. And after you are completely done reading, for the 3 of you that are still here, please leave your score in the chat. I want to know what y'all would score this. So for instance, you could write something like 1, 3, 1. That's how, in the chat, I want you to follow that format and grade this essay. There is no wrong answer technically. And so don't feel uncomfortable if you get it wrong. And I'll give you another minute or so to read this part. All right, so for those of you that are here, leave your answer in the chat. I want to know what y'all would give this essay. I'll give you about 2 minutes, and then I'll let you know the official score. All right, so the scoring on this was perfect score, a 1-4-1. And that's for 3 reasons. So first, with the thesis point, it presents a very clear thesis that responds to the prompt and takes a position on the factors that individuals and agencies ought to ponder. The thesis is set apart from the rest of the essay, which makes it very easy to identify. It also identifies economics and comfort/quality of life as 2 important considerations. That's what we would consider, for instance, the line of reasoning. It earns those 4 evidence and commentary points. That's really for 3 reasons. The first is that the commentary is very consistent, it's cohesive, it links back to the larger argument and thesis as a whole, and it also weighs some sources over others. It also earns a sophistication point because, as you read in the last paragraph just now, it uses refutation and concession, because here in source C, it talks about, it kind of concedes how they're not good looking, they cause sleeplessness, and that's and when they respond to it, that's considered sophistication. All right, so now we're going to move on to the second sample. And what I would like you to do is, once again, read through it and maybe grade it and send your grade in the chat. I really want to know what y'all would give this a score of. So here you go. I'm going to paste it. That's on page 10. Basically, read through sample D. I want you to, after reading it, give your points for thesis, evidence and commentary, and for the sophistication point. So we'll start the timer now. Give you about 3 minutes. All right, and now we'll switch it to the next slide. This one's much longer, so I'll give you like 2 minutes. All right, so now that you spent about 3 minutes or so reading through the sample D, I'd like you to go ahead and give your score in the chat. Is it a 1-2-1? Is it a 1-4-1? Is it a 1-3-0? A 1-3-1? Let me know in the chat. I'll give you about 2 minutes for that. Okay, so Samurai, you gave a 1-4-0. Interesting answer. All right, so the ultimate scoring is very close. It's a 1-3-0. So the reason why that shouldn't say earned sophistication is mainly because it does give a thesis. So if you go back through, it talks about how here it says that there are many factors to consider when establishing a wind farm, including environmental advantages, economics, and potential health issues. That's the thesis right there. It gives evidence and commentary because it has 3 sources: source F, source B, source D, and source C. So very clearly it uses more than 3 sources, and to some extent it does have commentary. It talks about how towns would not have wind power. You should definitely evaluate cost. Residents have grown a strong liking to their views and are unhappy about the tall turbines. And so to some extent, I think it does have really good evidence and some commentary, but that's why it doesn't get the 4th evidence and commentary point. And that's because it doesn't link back to the thesis, which is so important if you want to be successful on any of the 3 essays, that you need to be linking back to your thesis. And the problem is that this thesis is very, very broad, that there are many factors to consider. So the best way that you could get that 4th point is if you're talking about how these 3 issues kind of interact. And so I would just write a thesis in the first place that is more like an umbrella. So like when we go back to sample 1 where it talks about how agencies should look at the effects on local national economies and human comfort or quality of life, right? So if those 2 are very easy to link back to, you can link anything almost to the economy and you can link everything to quality of life. But comparatively, when you're just talking about environment, econ, and health issues, it's difficult to kind of link back to those 3 collectively. And also some of the commentary is a little lackluster. If you notice here it's kind of just like, wind farms are an economic advantage in more ways than one. But it only talks about electricity, right? That's the only time it really talks about cost. So the commentary is a little confusing, it's a little uneven, it's not very consistent, and that's why it gets just 3 evidence and commentary points. It does not get the sophistication point. There's never like beautiful prose style. There's no concession or refutation that's very explicit, except for in the intro where they're like, there's some disadvantages maybe, but that's not enough. Yeah, so in terms of tips for success, you should always be writing a thesis. You need to make sure you're getting at least 4 points minimum. That's 1 point for thesis, 3 points for evidence and commentary. So as long as you have 3 or more sources and you're linking back to your thesis, you will automatically get a 4 out of 6. But to get that 5 and to get that 6, it means that you're constantly linking back to your thesis. You're having that consistent thought commentary. I would say that the best way to get the sophistication point is by having a refutation and concession. That's the easiest possible way. And yeah, and that way you can maybe have like an extra body paragraph where you respond to some sources, you concede, and yeah, that's how you'd get sophistication. So you would pretty much start off with a 5, 1, 3, 1. So now I'm going to open it up to Q&A for 5 minutes. So for the next 5 minutes or so, let me know any questions about synthesis, argument, rhetorical analysis, AP English. AP classes, I've taken like 10 of them now, ranging from US history to English language to calculus. So hit me with anything you got. And otherwise, we'll just wrap up the stream. It's actually going to be more like 3 minutes or so because I don't want to hold you up for too long. Alrighty, so I think there aren't many questions today. Seems like a little bit low turnout, but that's okay. We have a lot more streams coming up with introduction paragraphs coming soon. Sorry, I'm going to switch that slide. We have the introduction paragraph stream next week, body paragraphs the week after, conclusion paragraphs, and rhetorical analysis review and practice on the 23rd. If you have any questions or any feedback on how I could improve the introduction or body paragraph streams or what you'd like to see, I'd be happy to help y'all out. And it's all about making what's best for you, and that's what I'd like to do. So yeah, thank you so much for coming to Synthesis Overview, and I hope to see you in the coming weeks. All right, thank y'all so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.